what some area motorcyclists are doing to put a smile on the face of a very sick little girl. After 14 hours, the search is over for a missing fisherman on Saylorville Lake. Good evening and thank you for joining us. I'm Aaron Brilbeck. Dave has the night off tonight. Well, investigators say the search began around midnight just north of the mile-long bridge and Lincoln access to Saylorville Lake. You probably noticed the video that we showed you that had Brevard being taken into custody. The areas around that was blurred out. That's because there were several undercover police officers that had taken him into custody. For their protection, we've decided not to show their face. What I do want to show you, this camper back here behind me, that's the one that was owned by Brevard's girlfriend's family. We don't know if he was staying inside that camper or not, but back behind that, there's an outbuilding. Behind that outbuilding, there's another camper that's being stored. He was found underneath that camper. When we were talking with Frost tells us he's never met Brevard before in his life. In fact, he says he lives in Urbandale. Yesterday, he had gotten the call and seen on the news that that Brevard had escaped, so he had locked up all of his doors and windows. He said he never imagined that Brevard would wind up here at his father's property. Yeah, a lot of people didn't. Aaron, really quickly, the Polk County Sheriff's Office tells us that Brevard may have suffered some injuries, perhaps by the police dogs. Did he appear to be hurt when he was taken into custody? When we saw him walking away, he was limping, but when we talked with Frost tells us that he didn't seem to put up any kind of a fight or anything. He seemed exhausted, in Frost's words, and almost happy to be taken into custody, but we didn't see any signs of any injuries other than he was limping a little bit as he was being taken to the police car. Aaron Brilbeck reporting from Prohl. Thank you, Aaron. A spokeswoman for the Sheriff's Department refused to turn over the dash camera video of the incident, even though she acknowledges it is public information. She says first she has to run it past the county prosecutor's office, even though she also acknowledges that there's no law or regulation requiring her to do so. In the end, she said she's not releasing the video to us because she can, by law, withhold it from the public for up to 10 days. Yeah, now that it's finally daylight, we're getting a better handle on just how widespread this destruction is, and it's pretty widespread. There's a pretty broad swath of damage from one end of the west side all the way to the other end of the west side. This tree is a pretty good example of just how bad the damage is. This tree was right in the way of the tornado, and you can tell by its size roughly how powerful that tornado was. We're seeing trees like this throughout the area, lots of damage to homes, lots of damage to cars. One thing's for certain, cleaning up this mess is going to take a lot of time. Crews spent the night trying to clear as much of this debris as they could from roads, trying to make a path for crews to work on restoring power to this small town. And it's not easy. The tornado snapped power poles like twigs and took down huge trees like this one, so big it tore up the sidewalk when it was uprooted.
It's just a lot of trees down on houses and garages and sidewalks, and just a lot can't get around.
Much of the west side of town was affected. Trees down, cars damaged, roofs destroyed. Lake City's mayor was on his front porch when the tornado touched down. He stayed for as long as he could, watching the storm damage his city.
You could see the rotation in the clouds, that it wasn't a true, like you see a funnel of a tornado. It was a lot of wind movement. You could see that because you could see the shingles and everything in the air flying.
It's pretty clear to see the path the tornado took. About 40 feet away from me is the high school. It blew the roof right off the high school and threw it all the way over here. About 100 people were inside the high school for an awards ceremony when the tornado touched down. No one was hurt, not in the school or the city. For Emily Simichek, it was a close call, though.
Then I went out to the front porch, and my parents actually called me and told me to head for the basement. And I'm like, yeah, okay.
Then she heard the neighbors scream.
All of a sudden they yell, "Oh, crap." And so I did the same thing, and I ran inside, and the wind started blowing really hard, and I had to use a lot of force to get my door actually shut. The front porch, half of it is torn off, but luckily that's all I had. Yeah, it was pretty scary. We've been seeing line crews coming in all night, and right now they're starting work trying to repair some of these down lines, but just driving through town, we're seeing a lot of these down lines. It's going to be a very daunting task trying to get the power back up again. We're told that the entire city is without power. Residents are waiting for the juice to come back on again so they can start cleaning up some of this mess. We've also seen folks from the Red Cross here. They're going to be going door to door today, talking with homeowners who've seen the most damage and trying to get them some type of help.
All right, Aaron Brilbeck up live in Lake City for us this morning. And Aaron, thank you so much for your work overnight.
Yeah, Aaron, investigators are still on the scene here of this fiery crash on I-80. Let me give you a show of just how serious this crash was. You can come back over this way just a little bit. This right back here behind me, this is the front of the rig. You can see the two seats that are inside there. Those were the seats the driver was driving in. Right next to it, the big smokestack. In between, you can see the engine of the truck. We're told there were 4 vehicles involved. There was this truck, another semi, there was a car, and there was a busload of people. Police tell us it's a miracle that everyone survived. Take a look at this video. This is video that was shot by one of our viewers and sent to us. It shows the vehicles as they were on fire, completely engulfed in flames. One truck driver who didn't want to go on camera tells us that he was slowing down after seeing another accident in the road. As he was slowing down, he says he hit his flashers, and that's when he was rear-ended by this truck that's back here behind me. After he was hit by that truck hit another car, then hit a bus. All of them, according to police, then went into flames.
4 of the vehicles were totally engulfed by fire. It started with the semi and just kind of cascaded to the other vehicles.
The driver of the truck that this semi hit tells me that right after he was hit, he saw it burst into flames in his rearview mirror. He says he pulled over his truck, ran over here, climbed up to the top. He broke out that window. He was able to pull out the driver, who he says was unconscious at the time. He and another motorist then dragged that man about 15 feet in that direction while this entire thing became engulfed in flames. Firefighters and police arrived a short time later. And again, investigators are on the scene right now trying to figure out exactly what happened. But police are telling us that while between 20 and 30 people went to the hospital, most of those injuries are very minor. However, we're told the driver of this truck, who still hasn't been identified, was pretty seriously injured. He had to be life flighted out of here.
Okay, Aaron Brilbeck reporting live. Just incredible that no one died there at the scene.
Earlier this week, AIB Business College announced that it would be merging with the University of Iowa. Well, today we obtained these secret meeting minutes that show much of what AIB told us and told parents just wasn't true. This is the document AIB does not want you to see. It's the minutes of the January 14th Board of Trustees meeting talking about the planned merger with the University of Iowa. And it shows a lot of what the public and students were told about the merger simply isn't true. During a Monday press conference, AIB President Nancy Williams said she first talked with U of I President Sally Mason about the merger last summer.
The idea for this merger stemmed from a casual conversation that I had with President Mason this summer.
But according to these documents, that's not true. The idea of merging AIB with another school has been in the works for years. Earlier this month, Williams reminded the board in 2010 the board wanted us to look at succession planning. Now, during the press conference, Williams assured us that the school is in good financial shape, and this gift to the University of Iowa is just the evolution of AIB.
AIB College of Business is not seeking any type of financial relief. In fact, the college is virtually debt-free.
But the meeting minutes say the college is $1.4 million in debt, and in terms of endowments, AIB is down to $4 million. By the end of August 15th, $2 million. We would have 2.5 years of cash to fund things. AIB is currently at about half of its enrollment capacity level. Still, Williams says enrollment is strong.
So our enrollment has actually been going up at a time when others potentially have been going down.
But she told the board recruiting is hard and will get harder with the funding formula. DMAC is our biggest competition, and they're more affordable, and now the president wants community college to be free. Board of Trustees member Sheila Tipton seemed confused by the proposed merger, according to the minutes, saying, "The last time we met was to have a 3-year plan to go forward and right the ship. What happened? Are financials so bad?" We've also asked Williams about student athletics. She says the school hasn't yet had that conversation.
The sports programs, we have not figured that out yet.
But that's not true either. The board discussed it at its January 14th meeting, saying athletics would be phased out right away. You'd find out quickly. 300 student athletes, not all are on the court or the field. If they want to do their sport, they could apply someplace else. That leaves student athletes
more disappointed than anything. I just want answers. I want to know why they weren't upfront with us. We're a business school, and so I'm assuming it was a business-related decision to lie to us.
Now, during the press conference, President Mason also stressed the importance of keeping students and the public up to date every step of the way during the merger.
And we share your commitment to being inclusive and transparent throughout the process. This is important for all of us, and it's certainly most important for our students.
But according to this document, the board's discussion has to remain confidential. No one talking about this outside of this room. We need to work on what the message will be early,
If it gets out and we're not in control, it won't be good.
And it's not good. I called the spokeswoman for AIB and she hung up on me. So I called the president of the college directly. She tells me that she's not going to comment on these meeting minutes because she says we obtained them illegally.
J.D. Mitchell of Rose Hill is furious that his city council approved a resolution to put the community's only school bus stop right across the street from a Tier 3 sex offender.
Iowa's had all kinds of issues with sex offenders lately, but yet Rose Hill wants to put a bus stop right across the street from me.
The plan is to put the bus stop here, just feet away from the home of 40-year-old Joey Keene, who was convicted in 1996 of sexually abusing a child. Rose Hill's mayor says he understands why some parents could be upset by the idea of having their kids wait for the school bus right across the street from a convicted pedophile.
Oh, I can see where they would be, yeah. Mine are growed up and gone, so like I say, it's not affecting me none.
Besides, the mayor says this is no big deal.
Oh, he's not like he's did nothing major, and I really don't know what he did to put a judgment against him. You know, sometimes they get that just for dumb little things.
This woman doesn't think it's a dumb little thing. We're shielding her identity because Keene was convicted of raping her daughter.
Oh, it's hard knowing what he did. He victimized a 2-year-old little girl. I was horrified. I couldn't believe that he had done that to a little girl. And I know if he ever had a chance again, he'd do it. I know he would.
About 15 minutes after we interviewed the mayor, he came back to us and said that he misunderstood the resolution that he voted on and that it has nothing at all to do with a school bus, even though it clearly says school bus on the resolution. The mayor says that's just in case Keene ever moves away, they can put a school bus there if they want to. But again, that's not what the resolution says.
There is no logic to it. I mean, it's a simple case of not really caring. You know, you're not thinking about the kids.
Changing a windshield wiper blade isn't very difficult. All you do is pop the old blade off and pop the new blade right back in again. It only takes a few seconds to do it. That's why we were so surprised that the Des Moines Police Department paid somebody more than $100 to change out a windshield wiper blade, and that's not the only big expense we found.
Maintaining a fleet of police cars isn't cheap, but check out some of the charges we found looking through last year's repair histories of each of Des Moines' 101 police cars. $541 to replace a battery and cable, and $104 to replace one wiper blade. Much of that cost? Labor. Taking an hour to replace a battery, a job that should only take a few minutes.
Well, you've got your positive and negative terminals, so you just remove the terminals, negative side first.
It took our mechanic just under 3 minutes to change this battery. It took him less than a minute to change the wiper blade. Police were charged $78.20 for that job, so we went to the police department's fleet maintenance department for answers. They're the mechanics outsourced by the city to work on Des Moines police cars. Director Brian Bennett says, in the case of the battery, mechanics just forgot to write down that they also replaced a faulty alternator.
Although presented as a battery replacement, there was certainly more work done than just a battery replacement.
But that's not reflected on the paperwork, and Bennett couldn't explain how he knew the alternator was replaced. He says he just knows it was. As for the wiper blade, Bennett admits the police department was overcharged.
Our mechanic, as I described, they work by job. They simply failed to get clocked off of that job. That is an error on that part. And obviously, it does not take $100 to replace a wiper blade.
But the bottom line on that, though, is that the police department was still billed, and therefore taxpayers were still billed based on that error.
That's correct. That's correct.
Another item that really jumped out at us, the city paid more than $25,000 to repair a police car that cost, brand new, just $22,000. Fleet maintenance says police made that call.
All along the process, we would be informing the police department in this case, or any department, if there's some additional charges.
Des Moines City Manager says when there are problems with billing, they're addressed.
The broad gamut of things they look at very closely.
So they'll question something like this?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and they do.
And is there documentation for that?
Yeah, again, we talked about that. Probably not.
Because the city manager insists, his office knows what it's doing with your tax dollars, and it doesn't need to be documented.
There's no documentation to say that they're going through each one of these individually, is my point.
Well, my question is, why would there be?
$541 for a battery? I'd be questioning it.
And who says they didn't?
Well, there's nothing to say they did or didn't. That's the point.
We don't set up systems for media to come in and review them. I mean, that's not what it's for.
Aaron Brilbeck, Channel 13 News.